Hi, this is Emily Iannelli. I'm male to female transgender, and this video is going to be pretty tough for me personally because of what happened to me. Um, I suffer from depression, bipolar disorder, and I'm also transitioning from male to female, which is something that is a big part of my life, and I need to actually looking forward to having surgery at some point this year. I'm in touch with my surgeon, and I'm going to my psychiatrist, my therapist, and just trying to stay out of the hospital. I was unfortunately in the hospital in the months of January and part of February. Um, I was going through a difficult time. I have a lot of stress. I'm trying to help my son. I have a lot of family relatives from the Philippines living in our house, and it's not easy. I'm not working because of my bipolar disorder and my social phobias. Unfortunately, being out of work now for quite a while, I've developed an aversion to going out. I only go out basically with my son and just me or a few friends that I have. I used to go to a support group for transgender individuals, but unfortunately, the center I was going to closed, and now they moved their offices out much further on Long Island. So it's just too far a drive for me. Plus, I take medication, so I'm not really supposed to drive when I'm on medication. So what happened in January 15th or the 16th, early in the morning, I just did something I shouldn't have done, and it was quite spontaneous. I was, putting out my uh, pill bottles on the table where I usually sleep on the couch and I watch TV. But for some reason, I wasn't thinking straight. And as I was lining up the pills, I just had this crazy thought in my head: what would happen if I took more than I'm supposed to? So basically, what I did was I was on Klonopin. I'm not taking that anymore, but I took about 25 Klonopins. Depakote I'm not on anymore either because of my liver function. Um, it got tested through my blood, and they determined I have high elevated enzyme levels in my liver. So I'm hoping that's not going to complicate my surgery for my transgender transition. But I took about 15 Depakote in addition to the 25 Klonopin, and I took another dozen Risperidone and something else I don't remember. And I mixed it with a bottle, not a bottle, like a glass of wine or something. I don't even drink alcohol, but I saw it in the refrigerator. So I made a cocktail with the alcohol and the pills. And I wound up not being able to navigate in my house. I kept falling actually. Um, yeah, I wasn't able to. I don't even have recollection of what was going on. My world was spinning around and I couldn't keep up with it. Um, I was I was in a bad place, bad shape too. Um, I lost track of time. I didn't know whether it was daytime or nighttime. All I remember was feeling very strange, and I I don't know. I all I remember was I don't even know how much time elapsed either. But what I remember was I kept asking someone, thinking somebody was there to help pick me up, but I wasn't able to get up, and I must have been thinking somebody was around, but everybody was. It must have been night because nobody was around. I was by myself basically, and I had no sense of balance whatsoever. My equilibrium was thrown off. And then I don't even know how much time elapsed, like I said, but I heard a knocking on my door. So I managed to get from the couch area to the door. But when I opened the door, I just fell through the screen, broke the screen popped out of the door, and my friend who was at the door caught me, and that's all I remember. Um, um, and then I, I all I remember hearing actually was there were three, because they're from the Mormon Church, and they're introducing me to the Book of Mormon and going to the church. It's nice. The people are very nice, and they're great. If it wasn't for them, I might have died. So it was a good thing that I actually, um, you know, took an interest in the learning more about the Mormon Church and, or Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I am also Christian. I go to church, but I don't think it can hurt because, allegiance to two churches is not a bad thing, actually. But like I said, I was very lucky that they were there. I didn't even realize we were supposed to have a meeting to discuss the Book of Mormon. So all I remember was one of the guys screamed to another guy, said, "Call 911." And then I must have been out. I'm sure that the paramedics and the police came to my house, but I have no recollection of it. They must put me on a stretcher because I couldn't even walk or get up. Plus, I don't remember anything, basically, after I fell through the door. And then I remember waking up. Well, I didn't wake up right away, actually. I read my doctor report when I went to the hospital to get the reports. And in the report, they said that one of the psychiatrist evaluators came to my room, and I was unconscious. But in the report, it said the woman was asking me questions, and she wrote in the report that every time she tried to ask me a question, I would be in and out of consciousness. And then when they said Emily, I would wake up, they try to ask me a question, and I'd fall asleep again. So I don't know how much luck she had, but when I read the report, it was so detailed. I can't imagine in the state of mind I was, or the physical state, that I was able to relay all that information. It must have been from history of records, because she was very thorough to the T for the past 6 years, basically, since I was unable to work. But in the report it said, or she asked me a question, and I don't recall anyway, but she said, "Do you have any remorse?" And according to the report it said, "I wished I had died." Now, when I did the overdose, it was my intention to die. I wanted to die. in retrospect, I shouldn't have done this, but I did. I can't undo that, but it's a learning experience. Unfortunately, I did lose my parents both to depression, mental illness, and my mom, she suffered terribly. She had paranoia, schizophrenia. They called it at that time manic depression, but it was like what I have, bipolar disorder. So she was in and out of hospitals since I can remember, and sadly, she passed away in the hospital at age 50. And she just gave up, basically. She lost her will to go on, and basically she didn't eat. They hooked her up to the tubes. She pulled the tubes out, and she wasn't getting the right amount of nutrition, and she was really on just intravenous, basically. So, yeah, she died at age 50, and then my dad served two roles as the two parents, basically, in her absence. And he had a demanding job as an iron worker. So, he did his best, and he was very loyal to my mom all throughout her illness and everything. They loved each other. It's so tragic. And then, sadly, my mom died in 1990. My dad got to live out his life. And 19 years later, in 2009, sadly, my dad took his life. And he did it in a horrific way. He went to the local train station, and he jumped onto the track when the train was coming full speed. And my brother-in-law went to identify the body. It was I can't even explain it. It was it's not good to talk about. It makes me upset. But going back to what happened to me, I was battling severe depression. I'm worried about my finances. I was depressed because I had two opportunities to have the male to female transgender surgery, and it didn't pan out. The first time was because I was in a psychiatric hospital 2 months before surgery, so the surgeon said we have to postpone the surgery. So the first time it was postponed, and they said if everything is good, 6 months from then you can do the surgery. So within that time frame, I stayed good. I didn't get into any trouble. I didn't go to the hospital or anything. And then, it was like a couple of months before the surgery, and I was getting some resistance from family about my long hair, the clothes I wore, dresses and everything like that. So they were making me feel guilty. And there was a family function, and they said if you don't present yourself in like a male role, you're not going to be able to come. So stupid me, I went to get my hair cut like a boy's haircut, and it was a bad mistake for me, because once I had that haircut, and then the woman who does my hair saw there was patches of blonde and brown from when she cut it, so she had to dye my hair brown again, and I was so devastated because I really got attached to the blonde hair, even though my natural hair is brown. And I just didn't feel good when I looked at myself in the mirror. I put a brave face on, and I said, she does great work. Actually, she did a great job when she changed my appearance from the female now to a guy, basically. And so that really bummed me out. And I couldn't wear dresses now, which I just enjoy very much. It's part of my transition. So I had to go to Walmart and buy 3 men's shirts and 3 pairs of trousers. And I had to literally, it pained me, but I had to wear that because I didn't pass anymore as a woman after I got the haircut. It's amazing how hair plays a big role, especially from male to female, because if you grow your hair out and then you're taking the hormones, you know, you're looking more and more like a female. So the hair plays a big role. But unfortunately, I didn't look like a girl anymore, even though I was still on hormones and stuff. So I was getting closer to the surgery date, and I had to call up my surgeon and say, look, I'm not able to do the surgery right now. I didn't elaborate what happened, but, in my mind, I wanted to do it, but, to have the vaginoplasty would not seem right to me now that I didn't look female. So I was heartbroken, but I had no choice. I had to cancel. And I didn't even think if I was going to try again to do surgery. But, so let me go back to what happened. I was in the hospital. I lost consciousness. The woman was interviewing me, and in the report it said that I was like going back and forth between consciousness and unconsciousness. And they had to keep calling my name to get me to answer questions, which I don't even remember being asked. So when I read that they asked me if I had any remorse, and I said that I wished I died, to me, that's pretty stunning that was written in the report, because I wouldn't have thought that I would say something like that. But like I said, when I did do the overdose, I was intending to die. So it's not good. And plus, my parents both died from, kind of both of them for suicide. My father actually did. My mother kind of indirectly. And I'm struggling too with depression, and I have a son who's autistic. So that really makes me kind of unsettled. I feel sad and depressed over his situation. And we're wondering if he's going to have to go into a group home, which is really difficult for me. He's our only child, but he's 20 now, and he's not making much progress. So it's really affecting me too. But I was taken to NUMC, Nassau University Medical Center, and I believe I was taken in on January 16th. And then, when they came to ask me questions, I must have cooperated, because they had everything detailed out, which was quite surprising to me. They knew I was going to a transgender center. They knew my psychiatrist's name. This must have been in the records anyway. But they also knew that I was in another hospital setting when I overdosed a couple of years back. No, maybe 5 years back. On Depakote, I took several pills, and I told my therapist, so he stopped the session, and he walked me over to the CPAP at Mount Sinai, and I was there like 3 days, but then they discharged me. So and that was included in the report, which surprised me. So Um, my birthday was the 18th of January. I was probably admitted on the 16th of January of this year, 2019. So, uh, yeah, my wife and son came to the hospital, and it was on my birthday, but unfortunately, I was unconscious. They must have stayed for a little bit, but I didn't even get to see them because I was out for the count. But when I did awake, the nurse said, "Oh, you missed your wife and son. They came to visit you for your birthday." And on the tray, there was a nice piece of birthday cake that they left for me, and a drink of ginger ale or something like that. So, I felt bad that I couldn't eat with them, but I was, hungry since I slept like 2 days straight. Um, I don't think they wake you up to try to eat food when you're unconscious, so I'm assuming I didn't have anything to eat for 2 days. So when I saw that birthday cake, it made me feel good because it was my birthday and they remembered me for that. So it was a nice cake. It was like chocolate and vanilla, and it tasted delicious. I wish there was some more, but I ate that with the ginger ale soda, and then the TV was on, so I was watching the TV. The nurses were there for me on a one-on-one because of what I did. Now this is crazy. Also, what happened was, like I said, I don't remember the dates actually. I don't know, but I remember going to the shower in the bathroom, and I saw this like cord. Well, it's hard to describe what it was, but it was long enough that I could wrap it around my neck. I was just curious. I wasn't really trying to do anything, but I remember like recently Anthony Bourdain and Kate Spade sadly committed suicide, and their method was hanging. So I just saw this cord, and I was curious, so I wrapped it around my neck. And the nurse was checking in on me, and she saw it, and so she summoned me out of there, and summoned one of the psychiatrists and a nurse, and she said I was attempting to hang myself. I don't think I was doing that. I think I was just, I don't know, I can't really tell. Everything was messed up, but they wrote that in the report, obviously. So I wound up spending a whole week at NUMC until they could get me a bed. It wasn't at NUMC, they got me the bed at another hospital, South Oaks, where I've been to also. So once everything was set and I had the bed and the insurance was notified, they transferred me in the ambulance to South Oaks. And when I got to South Oaks, I was sitting in a little waiting area, and I had the TV on, and I'm trying to remember what I was watching. I was watching, oh yeah, it was at the time when the government was shut down, and they decided, when the president came out to his garden or where they give a speech or something sometimes, the Rose Garden. He came out to the Rose Garden, and he said that they were going to open up government, because all these people they weren't getting paid. They were going to work. There were some that were like sleeping in their cars in the parking lot because they didn't have enough money to go back and forth since they weren't getting paid. And then the the whole thing in the skies with the airplanes and the air traffic controllers. So, the president realized he messed up. So he undid what he screwed up with. And, I felt more relieved for those poor people. So, yeah, that was what I remembered. And then I actually called home to see if my son could tell his mom to bring me up some dresses to the hospital. When I called, though, I got my friend. My friend was visiting to take care of Matthew, my son, because my wife was working, nobody was home, and she didn't want Matthew to be home alone. So she reached out to my friend Patty, and he came over. So when I called, he answered the phone. And I then said to him, "Oh, can you do me a favor? Can you get my clothes? I need, I have dresses that I had on chairs, luckily. So, it was easier that I had that out like that so he could, find what I was asking for." And he got a bag. He put like 6 dresses in the bag with some panties and some hygienic things, but when they brought it, they had to inspect everything. So they threw out the hygienic stuff. Obviously, the dresses were fine. Um, I don't wear pants, so no lace or anything. And I had flats with no laces because they generally make sure you take all the laces out. So I didn't have that, and so I waited. When they came to bring the clothes, they were gonna drop it off Matthew, my son, and my friend. Um, but they said they could come in, so they came in with the clothes, and I got to see my son, who I hadn't seen because I was in the other hospital for a week, so I hadn't seen him. And then we talked about 15 minutes, Patty and my son with me, and then I said, you better go now because they're gonna ready me to go to the unit where I was gonna go. So the attendant, made sure all the things that I needed, he gave me in a bag. And we went up to the room after I said bye to my son and Patty, and they were going out. So he took my son to Pizza Hut and then brought him to Target where he bought him a movie. So I thought that was very nice. So I was in South Oaks for 2 weeks. I had the insight, though, when I was in NUMC to write down telephone numbers of the bills that I needed to pay. I'm always thinking like an accountant, even though I'm not working now. So I had all the numbers. I had my bank account number. I didn't know the account numbers like for each bill, but I knew enough to get the research done to get the right phone numbers. And when I was in the hospital, like, I went in on Friday night. So on Monday, first thing, I made sure I went through the list and made the phone calls and made payments through my checking account. So I got caught up for the month, luckily. And paid my mortgage too, because that's the big thing I needed to pay. My car payment, utilities, everything like that. And then in South Oaks, they welcomed me. I talked to a nurse. I talked to a lot of people. They wanted to ascertain what was going on with me. And when I was talking to the nurse, I kind of opened up and spoke about all that was happening with me and the depression and being frustrated because I didn't have the gender reassignment surgery like I had wanted to. And then talking about my family history with my parents both dying tragically through depression and suicide. And I talked about my son who's autistic, and I talked about the pressures in the house. We only have one bathroom, 3 bedrooms, and we had like 9 people in the house, and I'm sleeping in the living room. I don't even have a bedroom. So, I was stressed out. And I tried to stay optimistic about the situation. I knew what happened. I know I should never have done that. I learned my lesson. But in the hospital report at NUMC, I did have prior suicide attempts, like the one I told or earlier said about the Depakote and winding up at Mount Sinai's CPAP. And then there was another instance where I ran in front of a car and the police were chasing after me. So they said I dodged into traffic, and they said that was a suicide attempt. The police tackled me and put a needle in me to make me fall asleep, and they brought me to the hospital. So they said I had 3 suicide attempts in the past 3 or 4 years. So I guess I'm lucky. I'm not sure if I have 9 lives, but I managed to survive 3 attempts, I guess. And it pains me to talk about this, but I'm hoping that I can help anybody out there who's feeling depressed, suicidal. There are other options for you. You don't have to take your life. You can get help. And, it's a slow process. I know, because, for me, it's difficult. Plus, I'm dealing with bipolar disorder, major depressive disorder, social anxiety, and being transgender, male to female, and being out of work for like 6 years now, and being discriminated against because I'm transgender. So, it's not easy in raising an autistic child. So, I got a lot on my plate. Plus, I'm the one who's paying all the bills in the house, too, and the mortgage. So, in South Oaks, I kind of tried to get into all the groups that they had during the day. They broke up the day by doing groups, and, they had staff that would come in. And I knew some of them already from being in the hospital prior occasions. So, we had like art therapy, music therapy, creative writing, which I like because I like to write. And there was game night where we would play bingo, checkers, chess, Uno, Jenga. So we had a lot of choices, cards, and we obviously had TV too. So we had like Netflix, we had the cable channels. But after a while, you get bored. It's like same thing every day. They feed you well. You get 3 meals a day. So I wasn't used to that because I don't eat a lot. But, I gained some weight because of it, actually. But the food was good. I don't know why people complain about hospital food, because I found it was pretty good, actually. They put me on some special diet because I had like a lot of fish in the menu. So on some occasions when I was getting tired of eating fish, I would pencil in something like a cheeseburger or a grilled cheese sandwich, and they were pretty good. They would accommodate my request. So, I talked to my psychiatrist like on a daily basis, basically. And I remember she said, if you end up back in the hospital, the next time, you're probably going to be long term. So that stuck in my mind when she said that. So I know for a fact that I have to be cognizant of not doing anything like I did. I met some really nice people too in the hospital. And initially, I didn't know what to say to people because of my transgender situation. Like, for instance, I was presenting as a female now because my hair was starting to grow again. So I'm pretty happy now. It's not long like I used to have it, but it's getting there. So I'm happy about that. So, I was always addressed as a woman in the hospital, and I was wearing dresses, of course. So, no brainer. You see someone in a dress and they have kind of long hair. In the hospital report, it said the woman wrote longish hair, so I guess she saw that my hair was growing. And so, in talking to several of the women, because I mostly spoke to the women, a few guys, but there was one woman who was going through a lot. She used to be an RN. She was very professional, but she sadly had difficulties in her marriage. Her husband abused her and played games with her and treated her poorly, and then he had an affair. So it wasn't a good situation for her. Um, and, we talked about each other's difficulties, and I felt really bad when I heard what she was talking about in her own life. But one night we were talking, and she just happened to ask me, "Oh, is your husband gonna come and visit?" And I didn't know how to answer, so I just played along. I said, "Oh, no, he's watching Matthew." So I felt guilty. So the next day I said, "Look, I need to talk to you. Um, Remember when we were talking and you asked me about my husband?" I said, "Well, the truth of the matter is I'm male to female transgender, and I actually have a wife. So I felt bad that I misled you to believe that I was married to a man when in fact no, because I used to be a man and I was married to my wife and we have a son." So she accepted it. She was very good about it. So that made me feel good. And then a few other patients I started to feel comfortable to tell, and they were very respectful. I think people who have like medical issues, psychiatric issues, they seem to be much nicer people because they're all suffering. It's not like out in out there in the real world. People are more judgmental. They're not accepting like they are in the hospital. So, I felt more comfortable. I don't go announcing my situation to strangers in the street. And there was some people I didn't tell anything about. They just assumed I was a woman, and I didn't say anything because, especially the guys, they don't need to know that. But I feel more comfortable with women because, I think they would be more understanding and more compassionate. So I was in South Oaks for 2 weeks, roughly 2 weeks, not exactly 2 weeks. And it was like towards the end of the month. And then after talking to the psychiatrist and filling out questionnaires and journaling and talking on a daily basis, and the reason why they were keeping me in a little longer than they wanted to was because they determined through blood tests there was the problem with the liver again, with the enzymes. So they were monitoring that. They took me off a lot of my meds. So basically, and they took me off my hormones, except spironolactone. They took me off estradiol, which is the estrogen. And I felt bad because that is what I need for my male to female transition. So basically, I was without that for like 3 weeks, almost a month. And They took me off a lot of my psychotropic meds. They took me off my antidepressants. They took me off. So I was basically on not that much medication. Um, the only thing I was taking, I guess, was lamotrigine, spironolactone, uh, and vitamin, basically. So after, and one other thing I wanted to say was when I was getting my food, they have my birth name on the ticket. So they probably know me by now. So, when they called for my tray, they said Emily. So I felt relieved. I didn't want to have to explain if somebody said, what, you're a woman, but why are they calling you by a boy's name? So luckily that didn't happen. So, my experiences in the hospital were positive, and I got the help that I needed, because I don't know what was going on in my head to do what I did, but it all worked out in the end. I'm feeling better, I'm getting more, doing writing and doing videos, and I also like to do videos where I put my male to female pictures in and set it to music and, upload it to YouTube or download it to YouTube. And, I like to see the progression of where I was as a male and now as a female, and it makes me happy. I'm still not there yet because I still need to tackle that surgery. I'm keeping my fingers crossed, and so when they determined I could go home, it was a transition again for me because I was 3 weeks out and I came. They even arranged a taxi for me, and I was driven home after spending almost 3 weeks in the 2 hospitals. Everything was good. And then, like a week after I was out of the hospital, I called my long-term disability insurance carrier, and I told them, look, I was in the hospital, I had a suicide attempt. I was in 2 hospitals, in fact, and I just got released, and I wanted to let you know what was going on. I said I need to get the medical reports, and I was going to send them, so I had to ask them for the address. And somehow, I don't know what prompted it, but I said, look, I'm concerned about the long-term disability because it comes for review every year, and I'm, not doing well. I'm not able to work. I'm not doing well up here at times, and I'm worrying, and I got a lot of, financial worries. I don't want to deal with the prospects of losing my house to foreclosure and winding up in the streets, and I have a whole family depending on me. It's a lot of stress on me. So I said, look, I need to continue with the disability, otherwise I'm not going to be able to make it. I might have to take my life, I said. And you say something like that, they're going to call you on it, and that's what she did. She called 911. She didn't say that she did, but she did because I was the one talking to her, and I said that. So she reached out to 911 emergency. She knew my location, but I happened to be going to South Oaks because I needed to get a medical report. So I was en route to South Oaks with my son, and then I got a call from the police department. They come to my house, and I said, no, I'm going to South Oaks. I got to get a medical report. And they said, no, come home. You got to come home. I got to have you evaluated. So I said, no, I can't. I'm in the process of getting a medical report. So they arranged to reach out to Suffolk County Police And when I was talking to the lady in the trailer where they keep medical records, she said I had to fill out a form, and once I filled it out, I give it back to her. And I wasn't intending to do it there, though. I had to do it at home because it was pretty comprehensive. So as I was walking out with my son to go to my car, this police officer started walking in my direction, and I said, "Oh, I have to go home because the Nassau County Police are waiting for me." And he said, "No, no, they called us. So we're taking it now since you're in our jurisdiction." So I had my son. I said, "What's going to happen to my son?" And they said, "Nassau County Police are going to come and take your son home. And we are going to take you to Stony Brook." So after being in 2 hospitals and then a week later after being released from South Oaks, now I was going to Stony Brook. It was crazy. So once my son was picked up by Nassau County Police, he got the ride he needed to get home. And then I don't know why, but when I was being taken by the Amityville police, not really, well, they're part of Suffolk County, but it was town police, Amityville. So they took me to the police station. I guess they had to do some paperwork or something. But they put me in handcuffs, which was weird. I never been put into handcuffs going to a psych hospital, but I guess that was their procedure. It wasn't like that in Nassau County. So, they weren't like, I didn't have to put my hands behind my back. Actually, I had them in front, and they just put it on, and they weren't like hurting my wrist or anything. So I was, comfortable. But it was awkward because I was trying to use my cell phone, and it was hard because I didn't have use of the hands since they were restricted. And then after they did all their paperwork, they, oh yeah, when I was in the handcuffs, they also anchored me to the table so I couldn't get out or anything. And then they came and they said, "Okay, we're going to take you now." So they still had me in the handcuffs, but they took me to the car, and they drove me to the hospital in Stony Brook, and it was like a 45-minute ride. And they were talking. It was the 2 officers, and on occasion they would say, "Is everything okay back there, Emily?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm fine." So they finally got me to the hospital, and in the hospital I had to answer questions, fill out reports, give them my medical insurance card, and they didn't admit me into Stony Brook. I was in CPAP, where basically it's a room where you have a TV set, you could walk around. They had makeshift beds. So when I was tired, I slept outside on a bed, and I was walking around a little bit, pacing. They had sandwiches out and stuff if you were hungry, and they also brought meals. So I was eating. I think it was on a Friday night also, because I thought if I was brought on Friday night that I was going to have to stay till Monday. But they work differently at Stony Brook. So, after going to sleep at night, waking up in daytime Saturday now, I was talking to several of the staff, the nurse, social worker, psychiatrist, and then I was talking to this guy. He was pretty nice, actually. He was one of the social workers, and he was a Vietnam War veteran, and he knew a male to female transgender. I think I don't remember her name now, but she was in the Navy SEALs. Kristen Beck. Yeah, she's male to female transgender, Kristen Beck, and he knew her personally. So he was kind of interesting to talk to because of his connection with her. And, he asked me what was going on with me, and I went through the whole thing about my family history, about my being out of work for a long time, being on disability, raising a son on the spectrum of autism, and, I'm bipolar disorder and having pressures in the house with finances and stuff like that. And, he was very nice. We were engaging in conversation. It was like 45 minutes. And then, he had to speak to someone else. So, he gave me a journal book because I said I like to write. So he gave me a book so I could write things in. And then like an hour later, the psychiatrist came to me and she asked me some questions and she said, you're good to go. We're going to sign you out today. You're going to be released. So I was pretty happy about that. I didn't want to stay another few days in another hospital. So it worked out okay. And then I said, I need a ride home. And the nurse said, no, your wife is here waiting with your son. So I was quite surprised. They came all the way out. It's like over an hour drive. And they picked me up and then we went home. So that was my experience. I shouldn't, in retrospect, have tried to kill myself like I did. I'm doing better. I hope that I don't have to do that again. But who knows? There's so much pressure in life. Not everything is perfect. And, I have depression. I have social phobias. I have bipolar disorder. I'm transgender. I've been discriminated against. I'm not working. I have a lot of financial pressures. I'm completely dependent on my disability, Social Security disability and long-term disability. So, I got a lot going on and it's really affecting me psychologically. And I also want to do my transgender surgery. I need to do that. I want to be fully female. So I have to stay healthy. I have to improve. I'm going to do videos hoping to chronicle my surgery when that comes, and I'm kind of excited. I'm a little nervous too. I don't want to be in pain. I also have arthritis, which is painful. And recently I slipped in a bathtub and I broke my thumb. I went to one of those urgent care. I went to urgent care, and originally I said I think I displaced my thumb, and the doctor did X-rays, and he said, no, you broke your thumb, you fractured your thumb. So he said, I need to get you in touch with an orthopedic surgeon. So I wasn't sure what it meant. He kind of led me to believe, I don't know, that I thought I might be having surgery. And I said to myself, but it's a thumb. How can you do surgery on the thumb? So when I went to the referral, the orthopedic surgeon, he looked at my thumb. He took X-rays. He took off that pink protective thing that went around my whole hand and kept my thumb separated. He looked at it, was all black and blue, took X-rays, and he said, "Look, surgery's not necessary, but you do have a fracture and your arthritis is really bad." And he said, I'm going to put your little splint on. He put a splint on. It's pretty good, though, actually, and it's nice because it doesn't cover the whole hand. It just covers the thumb, and it protects the thumb. So I'm supposed to go back there in 3 weeks, and he's going to replace this with a new one, but he's going to do X-rays again to determine if surgery may be necessary. So I'm going to him. Later today, I'm going to my therapist. I'm going to a group. Monday, I have a therapy appointment. And then, like in a couple of weeks, I'm going to my psychiatrist. And in June, which is very important for me, is I'm meeting with my surgeon, talking about the prospects of the surgery, which I'm keeping my fingers crossed because I really need to go forward with that. You know, I know in the aftermath of the surgery, there's going to be a lot of maintenance, going to be pain associated with the surgery. I know lots of my friends who are male to female trans, and they had the surgery and they seem to be doing well and they're happy with the results. You know, a few of my male to female transgender girlfriends are already having sex. You know, one of my friends, male to female, she has a boyfriend now, so I am not really into the sex part. I just want to be whole as a woman. You know, the thought of being with a man or a woman, you know, I'm married, so I'm not thinking about anything like that. I just want to be me, Emily. I'm free spirit, and I want to be comfortable within my skin. You know, I went through this long period of time, 50 years, where I was battling with my gender identity and just, you know, disregarding my own personal feelings because of society and all, and family and friends and stuff. But in the long run, you may run away from it. You may suppress it. You may repress it. You may get rid of all your clothes, then go back out and buy new clothes. You can't run away from it too long because it's going to come back, and that's what happened with me. And no matter how much I denied it, you know, I got the boy haircut. I felt extremely depressed and suicidal at that time. And, you know, now my hair's growing. I'm wearing my dresses again. I'm happy. So hopefully everything's going to work out. And one other thing. Look, I am not an expert, but, you know, I did something I shouldn't have done. I'm not going to blame it on family history, but depression is serious. If you're in need of help, you need to talk to somebody. You know, you call the suicide hotline, reach out, call 911 if you need to go to a hospital to talk to a psychiatrist. Don't take your life. You know, in retrospect, I fucked up. You know, I shouldn't have done what I did. It screwed me up. I lost 2 days. I was unconscious. Your life is precious. It's worth living. You know, do your best to cope and try to get help. There's help out there. You know, use it. Please don't take your life. It's very sad. I read stories about people, young people, middle-aged people, old people who sadly succumb to their depression or bullying with case of younger groups of people. And sadly, they take their lives, and it's very tragic and sad. I remember this one girl, I don't remember her name, but she did a video on YouTube with index cards, and it was heartbreaking. She was talking about being bullied and all. She was talking about being blackmailed for a video that was taken about her. And then she got teased by her classmates, and the parents literally had to move to get her into a different school. I think her name was Amanda, but I don't remember her last name. She was from Canada, but shortly after she did the video, she hung herself. And obviously she died. So, you know, you need help. Please go out and get the help you need. Well, anyway, this is Emily saying goodbye, wishing everybody the best, and, you know, just try to hang in there, do the best you can, and be positive. And if you're transgender, do what you gotta do to be happy, because that's the one thing we all need to be, is happy. You only get one chance at life. If you're upset, if you feel like you're not fitting with your gender identity, you can get help. I'm going through the transition. I thought I would never do it, but I'm doing it, and I'm happier, and I want to go forward. I don't want to die. I want to live. I want to be the woman that I'm supposed to be. Go out into the world. I want to, help my son. So my life is necessary, and I need to live it because people are depending on me, just like they're depending on you. So be careful and take care of yourself. I love you guys. Bye.